everyone. Today we are going to discuss on the origin and development of NGOs and VOs, non-governmental organization and voluntary organization in India. And while doing that, I'll be discussing about the relationship of non-governmental organization with intergovernmental organization, then NGO and government interface, then role of NGOs in advocacy. Um, First, we will have an understanding of NGO. We try to conceptualize what is NGO. You might have already some understanding about NGOs as you have attended the previous lectures. So, if we define NGOs, NGOs are organization of voluntary natures having a common interest and free from external control. The same definition can also be applicable to voluntary organizations where we get to find voluntary involvement of members, paid and unpaid, uh, who are uh, expressing freedom from external control. So here in both this aspect we get to see the commonality of interest in NGO. Also we get to see this is a organized task driven group having common interest towards fulfillment of a social cause. And in terms of voluntary organization we get to see voluntary services from paid perspective, unpaid perspective to bring in change in the society. So if we look into the features of the NGOs, as these are non-governmental organizations and these are also um, having synonymous with numerous terminology, you see that there are similar words which are often used to reflect upon NGOs. We have seen that there are civil society organizations, there are also grassroots advocacy or grassroots organizations, there are also you see that non-profit organizations, then intergovernmental organization, governmental organization. So there are numerous terminologies which fit into this spectrum. What is NGO? And there is a very thin line of difference to understand NGO, and also the differences among those terminologies. So if we try to understand the feature of NGO, we actually see that the very first feature is that NGOs are supposed to be registered. That will actually give NGO a legal personality and also administrative viability. And secondly, when we talk about the administrative structure, then we see that NGOs actually involve that organization and administrative structure. Um, Having an executive body committed towards social cause, and third we have some aims, objectives and mission and vision of the NGOs that will also make the working of the NGOs, the operation of the NGOs very distinct. And fourthly we have see that NGOs are actually governed by their own members. There are also membership fees. That is one way to even run the NGOs apart from government donations, foreign donations, and different kind of other donations. So we also see that there is membership fee based on which NGO can be run. So basically NGOs are governed by the own members, as NGOs are free from the external control. So these four very characteristics will make an NGO distinct from government organizations. And also, when we talk about non-profit organizations, this is a bit very ambiguous term because most of the time there are laws and legislation to define non-governmental organization, to define non-profit organizations. But you see, there are also schools which are working for non. Working with a non-profit motto for the community, but not necessarily that their line of activities are non-profit oriented. So it is very difficult to even define what is non-profit, but yeah, simultaneously we can use these very definitions like non-profit organizations, you say voluntary organizations, civil society organizations, development organization, based on their orientations, based on their purpose, based on their aims, vision, mottos towards social cause. Then we would like to reflect upon Marcel's organizational uh, variety. He provides some sectors. He said that there are some sectors uh, of organized action, and that is based on the source of control and contribution to social change. So when we talk about you see organized action based on source of control, we actually see there are varieties of organized action. Even we can say statutory and legal actions are also there, and which is actually run by the government, and beneficiaries are the society, the community, and we also have the religious sector, we have philanthropic sector, and that is another organized sector. And source of control is the religious bodies, and source of control for philanthropic organization will be also a body from the very society, charity oriented body. And also there is organized action like you say informal voluntary groups. Source of control derived from the very society and derived from the cultural norms, the cultural context. And also we have another organized actions, and that is community organizations, where we get to see the source of control belonging to the community of the people. So there are different sectors of organized action, and NGOs are basically known as a third sector. And here we actually see, when we talk about the sectors of organized actions, we also see the contribution, each sector's contribution to social change. Suppose private sector's contribution to social change, they basically do not try to alter the social political inequalities. But when you talk about the statutory and legal sectors, like a sector which is run by the government, we talk about public sector or government sectors. So definitely they will try to provide the equity and allocation of benefit on egalitarian basis. And then when we talk about the third sector, which are basically the philanthropic sector, religious sector, community, and also informal communities, which are based on a motto, a moral motto or a religious motto, and spreading of religion, or also some kind of morality involved to even give the relief and rehabilitation to the society, and provide that relief rehabilitation to the society, and also bringing socio-economic development, bringing cultural development, bringing overall change to the society, are contributing to the social change in a way or other. So we actually see that there are also a brief classification of NGOs we um, could draw. And in terms of classification, we see that there are NGOs which are multi-clientele oriented on the basis of their service to the different beneficiaries. We could also see there are multi-clientele or heterogeneity clientele NGOs, and there are also single clientele, or there is also homogeneous clientele NGOs. In terms of the size, the span of activity, we could also see some local NGOs, small NGOs, medium NGOs, then there are also large NGOs. Then we can see that there are some NGOs, they usually offer the uh, relief, rehabilitations, and charity benefits. On that basis, we could actually see those and name those as welfare NGOs. They are working for providing the relief, rehabilitation in times of calamity, in times of natural disaster. And there are also some NGOs which are oriented towards service delivery, and most of the NGOs are oriented towards service delivery. And we could also see that they focused up on building the social infrastructure, focused up on building hospitals, health infrastructures, road and transport facilities, etc. And also focused up on building the schools. So they focused on delivering the services. There are also NGOs, they focused on economic development, and some NGOs are focusing on social development. And economic development oriented NGOs are trying to generate income uh, oriented job. They're trying to create job in a community, and they're usually pro government. They don't want to stand against the government and try to allocate the benefits of the scheme among the community people. And there are also some organization working for social development. They're trying to raise awareness among the community about educations, about health, sanitations, and also create a consciousness among them, and also conscientize about social change towards transformations, towards growth. And then we also see that there are another variety of organization which are working for empowerment. Apart from, you see, networking among the community, as well as you see, there are also support NGOs. So this is the brief classification of NGOs. We get to see that networking NGOs are there when like-minded NGOs are working together, NGOs with similar goals are working together, which will also strengthen their apparatus, they will strengthen their goals, strengthen their pursuit, and at times provide a safeguard from the exploitation of even the state and private sectors. And it will strengthen uh, their commitment to the society. So there are many organizations who are into networking of NGOs. There are also some government organizations, they are into the networking of NGOs. So that's how we could have a very brief classification. This is the very introduction of understanding the NGOs, how we understand NGOs and VOs. Then we try to look into the relationship between NGOs and IGOs. When we talk about the NGOs are non-governmental organizations, and IGOs are intergovernmental organizations. So NGOs usually play a role in intergovernmental organization and international communication. And NGOs are basically interest articulators, and they try to pressurize government uh, in terms of bringing some social change and bringing transformation. And when we get to see their role in international politics, we see that the NGOs usually hold a very amicable relationship with intergovernmental organization like United Nations organization, different organs of United Nations organizations, different specialized agencies of United Nations organization. So we have uh, in intergovernmental organizations like WHO, World Health Organizations, then UNESCO, and UNICEF. So NGOs are having a consultative relationship with those intergovernmental organizations. And you see that in UN Charter, in one publication of the UN, it is also described that NGOs are task oriented, driven by people with a common interest. And in that very charter, it is also mentioned that intergovernmental organization is also reflective of human fate and human behavior. It is not necessarily holding the membership of state alone, which usually we understand intergovernmental organization as organization holding the membership of the state across the world. But when we come to NGO, come to understanding of this NGO, NGOs are basically a form of organization and organized actions by individual members. So that's what has differentiated NGOs from IGOs, because NGOs are basically focusing upon the people. It is also run by the people, governed by the people, with a specific aim and the objective. At the same time, it is also trying to create change of the people. But when you talk about this IGOs are made of the states and also trying to create change in the state. So it usually thinks in terms of state level. IGOs usually think in terms of state level, but when we talk about the NGOs usually think in terms of people level. And we also see that in United Nations Charter, it is being defined that NGOs are reflective of human fate and human heritage. So it is much more relatable to the NGOs, the relation between the NGOs and IGOs. And there are some specialized NGOs. We have also given the reference, we can get the reference from there. We have International Political Science Association. It is actually a forum uh, of political scientists, and this organization creates a forum for political scientists for discussion. And we have also Greenpeace working for environment, and Amnesty International working for human rights. We have Planned Parenthood working for family planning and reproduction. And then we talk about International Red Cross and Intelset is also a consortium of public and private organizations. And we see there are various religious groups. They do hold status. This is called the consultative status in its relation to IGOs. So these are international NGOs. These are not IGOs, but these international NGOs who hold consultative status with IGOs, ECOSOC, suppose economic and social organizations, grants that special consultative status and rooster status to NGOs on the basis of the aim and pursuit of the organization. So ECOSOC, economic and social organization, grant special consultative status to NGOs on this basis of the special aim, and rooster status to those NGOs who are occasionally working in line with their pursuit and the issues that international organizations are pondering upon, working upon. So you see that uh, NGOs are also associated with Department of Public Information of UN. Um, we talk about Department of Public Information. Uh, uh, which actually grant access to NGOs towards various document, and also libraries. There is a library in UN, so access to the libraries, access to the documents, press release, photographs, and facilitate having meeting with intergovernmental organization. And that's how we actually see there is an amicable relationship between NGOs and IGOs. Then we see the development of organization across the world, and this is a very brief about which I'm going to provide. Because we first see that NGO is non-governmental organization, and the very origin came from these community organizations, and the war ceased after the First World War and Second World War. Try to uh, provide some peace-based relief to the survivor of this war, and those wartime says become the peacetime says, and that was also one milestone. And we see also there is a professional and expansion, professional development of communication, and that during that 1935 to 1955. And there is a report called land report. That land report is important because that report has attempted to analyze uh, the role of community organization and trying to define community organization, and said that community organization is a method of social work and is different from community development. And then we later, after 1966, we get to see there is a directed focused on community development. But the community organization is different from community development because this is basically a process oriented, and development from community organizational point of view is infinite in that sense, and there is not a definite time bound development. But when you talk about community development, there is a definite time bound development which is also executed by the members, and by also those strategies to bring in change in the societies. And not necessarily people who are engaged in community development are from the very specialized sector of social work. They can also hold yeah, different professions, and with different specialities and different occupations, and they can be a master of law, they can be a master of communication, they can be also from sociology sector, from political science sectors. On the basis of their interest, they could land up, and they could also come up with that planned development effort. But when we talk about community organization, this is actually a method of social work, and there are certain approaches which I would like to discuss in my next class, through which community organization usually try to bring in change in the society. Now you see, when we talk about this NGO oriented development, are basically participatory oriented development. Participatory development, they are focusing on the people, and that's how their effort to bring in change is different from the state. Then we see here, after land report, we have Sol Olinesky's model of community action. This is also based on conscientization of the people, try to make people understand about the reality of the society, and also to understand the power inequities, in a way to empower themselves when they will understand the realities of their environment, and what has caused that environment, and they could freely express themselves. And there is no harm in confronting the authority, and that's what is being focused upon Saul Olinesky's model of community actions, because it is through confrontations you could bring in change and transformation. And then, as we have already told you, that 1966 we have well directed effort towards community development program. After that, I would like to focus upon volunteerism. This is a very important aspect of voluntary organization. When we study voluntary organization, we try to theorize the effort of volunteerism. First, we actually see that there are different types of volunteerism. One is sacrificial volunteerism, which we get to see the reflection in Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and also many Indian figure who are into social reform and even in religious reform. We talk about even the Vivekananda. He is also engaged in social reform. This is basically known as sacrificial volunteerism, because they're born with that ability to sacrifice themselves for the cause of the society, with that intensity to sacrifice themselves for the society. And you see that they're very committed towards the social cause, and more than a professional commitment, they even they go to the extent to even sacrifice their life to bring in change. Then we see the professional and developmental volunteerism, which we actually focused upon, which is focusing upon a degree, having a degree to be a volunteer and to involve in the NGO sectors. And here they are also committed to the social cause and society, social transformation, and they understand the objective, mission, vision, and the strategy to work. So, in sacrificial voluntarism, it is not that those leaders are not visionary. Leaders were visionary. Leaders also had a mission, and they sacrificed their life to attain that mission. So, they are so very committed. So, here in professional and developmental voluntarism, we see that those volunteers, those representatives, they are committed towards the social cause, and they don't regard money over the social commitment, and they have a definite technique to, or tactic or technique and method to intervene into the society to bring in change and transformation. And then we talk about the amateur volunteerism, for which volunteerism is a very easy course of action. So it doesn't need that rigorous training, and they think that it's very easy to run an NGO, easy to make themselves committed towards the society to bring in social transformation. And they don't have a clear understanding of the vision of that organization and the mission of that organization. And hence, although they are committed to bring in change, because they are concerned about change, they want to do something, but they do not know how to achieve it. So this how to factor is missing, and they do not know the methods and approach to achieve it, and hence they are amateur volunteerism, that amateur volunteers, and fall into this amateur volunteerism group. Then we have ventilatory volunteerism. So when we talk about the ventilatory volunteerism, we also see that there are some elite and opulent, elite and opulent class are also interested joining in this group. They at times ventilate their urban stress and come and help people who are marginalized, who are downtrodden, and they always seek media also to highlight their effort. They do have money, and so they do intervene into the society to bring in change. But at times, whenever they face challenge, they also withdraw their effort and their contribution towards society. So this is very time bound effort, in a sense that their effort is also not continuous one or a consistent one. So there is a lack of consistency in ventilatory volunteerism. This is also called opulent volunteerism. We won't get to see that consistency and continuity to bring change, and dedicatedly involving in social change, dedicatedly involving in bringing transformation to the society. And then we also see that we have survival volunteerism. So when we talk about, yeah, when you talk about survival volunteerism, when volunteerism, that effort becomes their bread earning tool. So they involve in volunteerism, and it is to earn some money. So that is called survival volunteerism. Basically, they're not committed to their mission, vision, objective. So they're simply engaged in volunteerism because it is giving them some money, or giving them earning bread and butter. Then we also have pseudo volunteerism, and in survival volunteerism, we get to see no commitment. They also turn to anti volunteerism, because you see there are funds floating around. So many a time government come up with funds to invest upon a scheme, to target one group of beneficiaries. So whenever we see there are funds floating around, volunteers come to take advantage of these funds, and they form an organizations and earn money out of that venture. So survival volunteerism and pseudo volunteerism is also of that kind. So they also uh, um, try to go to the extent, any extent, to even entice uh, uh, the one who has fun to get the money. So but the thing is that they do not have that commitment, they do not have that vision and mission to bring change. Huh. So they want to get the monetary benefit, and hence we get to see that their effort is also not directed in organized and systematic way. And we talk about the transfiguration of voluntarism. This is important because when we discuss about different varieties of voluntarism, and transfiguration of voluntarism says that at time this very types of voluntarism may also transfigure itself upward and downward. You might also say that professional and development voluntarism also turn to amateur or maybe survival voluntarism if there is no motivations, if they do not get support from the community also, and do not get support from the government, do not get the political will, they may also reduce to survival voluntarism. Then we see that amateur voluntarism can also move upward. They can become, you see, professional voluntarism with their commitment, with taking some training. They can also move upward and become, you see, professional and developmental voluntarism. And we can also see that survival voluntarism at times can also move upward, and they can become amateur and to professional voluntarism. And ventilatory voluntarism can also become a sacrificial voluntarism. So we get to see that at times the forms of voluntarism get transformed and transfigured based on the social norms, the commitment, the orientation, the support and motivation they got from the society, from the government, and also from other sectors and from the coalition of actors. Okay, then there are some experiment. These are called Indian experiment only. So I'm actually focusing up in voluntarism or voluntary organization in our land in India. So we actually see there are some initiative taken during pre-independence period. So this is a Sriniketan experiment, and we also have Sevagram experiment, Gurgaon experiment, then Marthandam project, then Sarvodaya scheme, then ITWA pilot project that was also started by Mr. Albert Meyer and Mr. Horace Holmes in Itwa district of Uttar Pradesh. Sarvodaya scheme, it was based on Gandhi's ideology, which has traced upon the cooperative principle and the method. And then we have Marthandam project, and that was basically an initiative of Young Men's Christian Association, and that is a need-based project. And Gurgaon experiment, that was launched in Gurgaon district of Punjab. We have Sevagram. Sevagram was implemented in Wardha district. So you see, this very experiment which were conducted during pre-independence period, during even colonial India, British rule, were directed towards bringing self-reliant society, and also create rural reconstruction. So it is driven towards rural reconstruction, try to reconstruct the rural areas, even improving the cottage industries, and also taking some step in adult literacy, and improving the health and hygiene condition of the society, and also focusing upon basically the educations and reforming the society from the ill practices. So and it's of these experiments are to an extent driven by this Gandhian ideology. Motto is to bring change in the society, to create village level organizations, and also to create capacities in the village, to bring in change in the village, to make a village self sufficient, and also develop some village level entrepreneurs. And they also launch various programs for it, as I have already told you, and towards rural reconstruction, the kind of programs they have um, uh, undertaken are driven towards improving the cottage industries, and also agricultural, scientific agricultural product. Then also they have focused upon child education, adult education, women education, health and hygiene of that community in order to improve that rural areas. Then we see the origin of voluntary organization, as we have already come across those framework of voluntarism. We actually see that voluntary agencies originate and independently function outside the government system, having a service as the primary concern. Voluntary services are welfare oriented at the same time, and they do have that service as the core of their effort. As we can see that India has a long history of charity based concept of dana and the seva. Dana means giving and seva means service. Then we also see a reflection of voluntarism during the Maurya period and Gupta period, when various welfare services were taken by king in order to provide this protection to the handicapped as well as downtrodden of the society. Then we have like services like Madhu Khan and Adhinam system. These two systems were very prevalent in ancient India, and Adhinam system was basically a system by which a Brahmin boy usually takes a meal once a week in a rural household, and that's how, and during his study period. And this is also an arrangement, a prior arrangement that he usually make with that household, that he will take meal in that household, and then and voluntarily that household agree upon to provide him the meal. Then Adhinam system is also there in ancient India, where there is a provision of free boarding and lodging facilities available for students. So we see that we had that voluntary effort in uh, India in the past, and during pre-independence period also we get to see there are numerous organizational effort through which we get to see the services, voluntary services were disseminated. Friends in Need Society came in 1858. That was the first NGO, you might say, voluntary organization in India, Friends in Need Society. Then we have Parthana Samaj, then Satya Sadhan Samaj, Arya Samaj, we have Brahma Samaj. I have forgotten to written note down Brahma Samaj, the National Council for Women in India. So establish a different period of time and try to bring in change in the society. And the work of Christian missionaries are known to everyone, and they have also contributed to social reform in India and building hospitals, building schools across different geographical region across the India. And then we have national organizations like Indian Red Cross Society, Young Men's Christian Association, Young Women's Christian Association, Harijan Sevak Sangh. They were also functioning and provided voluntary services. Several all India level voluntary organizations were there: Kasturba Gandhi National Memorial Trust, Indian Council for Child Welfare, Youth Hostel Association, Association for Social Health, etc. were also set up. And then we actually see that gradually after 1970s, the concept called community organization gained momentum in India. And over the years, the concept called community organization, which is also equivalent to NGOs, but when you say community organizations, we also get to see some village level groups, clubs, women association, youth groups, self-help groups. Those are also community organizations, and few viewed community organization as a non-governmental organization, voluntary organization. But voluntary organization, non-governmental organization are working for a community. So they're always driven towards attaining change in the community. They're working for a target community. So in that way, they are also community organizations. But over the years, we get to see a change in the concept and philosophy of the community organization as well as non-governmental organization, voluntary organization, change in the method of execution and approaches, and also their professional practices and personals they recruit to undertake change, to carry out change in the society. Uh, we see now we go to discuss about NGO government interface. It is important, and that was actually the core of the today's discussion. So, it is important to identify the role of government in understanding its relationship with NGOs, because government usually come up with different schemes and want the NGOs to take those schemes and implement those schemes. And when we talk about government role, it is important to identify the role of government, special role of government and NGOs in service delivery, because they are basically delivering certain services, but taking to the geographical vastness, taking to and different diversity in the society, government usually play a very prominent role in service delivery. And government also try to attune its relationship with NGOs in two way. One is providing fund to implement the government schemes, and another way is to provide fund for project development. And then we see that we have developments over the period. We have National Advisory Committee on Public Cooperation that came in 1952. They try to give NGOs a name of public cooperation. They are body of public cooperation rather than NGOs, because at different period of time, NGO and government are role have undergone different phases of like love and hatred and entrancement, and also you see an euphoria. So we see government usually provide fund to NGOs to implement certain scheme. Government come up with scheme and want the NGOs to implement those schemes, and accordingly government provide the fund. And government also provide fund to NGOs, ask NGO to come up with project proposal and provide fund. In that way, two-way government is trying to establish its relationship with the NGOs. That the NSCPC, National Advisory Committee on Public Cooperation, assess the existing program of the NGOs in connection with the national government. Role of NSCPC with NGOs, and in establishing relationship with NGOs is such that it will assess the existing program line of the NGOs, whether it is going in line with national development or not. Then it will advise the planning commission, that is also a government statutory body, on ongoing basis, continuous basis, about how to revamp relationship, refurbish relationship with the NGOs. And we see that then we have another institute, National Institute of Public Cooperation and Child Development, that came in 1987. And they also focused their activities towards recognition of the NGOs and promote NGOs working in women and child development. Then we can actually see during post-colonial period the kind of developments in terms of government NGO relationship, as well as development of NGOs. We also get to see establishment of Central Social Welfare Board. Establishment of Central Social Welfare Board came in 1953, and for the promotion of the NGOs, basically they institute CSWBCs. Central Social Welfare Board was instituted to provide financial assistance, technical guidance, supervision, and coordination of the effort of the NGO in the promotion of development, and especially rural development. And later on, government has actually curtailed the scope of Central Social Welfare Board to reduce its role to prohibitive and rehabilitative and promotive course of action towards NGOs. So we see that Central Social Welfare Board, while promoting the NGOs, trying to bring in various the assistance of various state social security board, state secure state social welfare board, and also try to coordinate the activities of local NGOs. But you see, as they are deprived of uh, working towards development, as their role, their scope has been curtailed down to only the rehabilitative effort of the NGOs, promoting the rehabilitative effort of the NGOs, promoting the you see prohibitive effort of these NGOs instead of development effort of the NGOs. So that was a development of Central Social Welfare Board, but it is actually known for providing the technical guidance to NGOs, consultation to NGOs, supervision to NGOs, and financial assistance to NGOs. And also, we have another organizational setup that is known as CART, that is Council for Advancement of Rural Technology to improve the condition of rural areas. That's set up in 1983. That is an organization. They also try to provide guidance to NGOs to innovate and diffuse the rural technologies and rural infrastructure, and try to work in coordination with the NGOs. We have another organization that is called PADI. PADI is People's Action for Development in India. Development in India came in the same time, 1984, but later on PADI was merged with CART and form CAPART, that is Council for Advancement of People's Action and Rural Technology. And the main thrust of CAPART became the employment, income generation, creation of community assets, fulfillment of the need base like hosting and drinking water. We have a very important book, Patrick Kilby's book. So from where we get to find about this very development. So you can also read this book, and then we actually see that government has made an arrangement uh, to make the financial disbursement to NGOs, and 5% of financial disbursement are to be channeled through PADI. So PADI is there through which government NGOs can also get the fund from different ministries of the government. So in government we get to see Ministry of Rural Development, Ministry of Social Welfare, Ministry of that Family Welfare, Ministry of Educations usually take a help of you see NGOs and try NGOs to design their development goal and cooperate them in designing the development goal and also execute the plan and policies at grassroots level. And most of the time government cannot go to the uh, innermost corner of a village, and there we get to see the role of NGOs in bringing services to the society. Then we also see that NGOs have got recognition in different plan uh, that we have taken. And from third 5-year plan, NGO has got recognition. As in the third 5-year plan, we had this National Advisory Committee on Public Cooperation that was established. Also recognize the role of NGOs and emphasize NGOs as a body to bring in public cooperation. And then we see that in fourth 5-year plan, fifth 5-year plan, recognize the role of NGOs in participatory development. And in seventh 5-year plan, we get to see some budget earmarked towards NGOs to bring in service delivery and bring in change in the society. And also, um, in 9 5-year plan, we get to see the involvement of NGOs in the planning process. So we see that over the years, NGO government NGO government relationship has undergone different varieties of you say that emotions. Here, I would like to discuss about that relationship that which I have already discussed with you, right from the independence till late 1950s. We actually know this era. It is era of cooperation. Okay, so when you talk about this era of cooperation, in the sense that NGOs were working during that period as a shadow state, they didn't oppose to state, didn't oppose to the government, and most of the NGOs were inspired by Gandhian ideologies and trying to work in rural reconstruction. During before independence, even during independence and until 1950s, so we get to see that era of cooperation between NGOs and a government. And NGOs didn't oppose government. From early 1960s to late 1970s, we get to see the era of antagonism, which actually prevailed because of a few young middle class people who tried to revolt against government line of actions, because there was a stricter government control in the very first period over the NGOs, and government usually provide the fund and want NGO to work uh, in their dictated line and dictated way. And hence, we see that in the second very period, we get to see an era of antagonism, and that too stems from those young, educated middle class, and they tend to be very revolutionary. They emerge to be revolutionary, and most of this. You see, spirit got reflected in Jayaprakash Narayana's Sarvodaya movement, and a revolutionary politics also began. At the same time, NGOs also tried to have a claim in activism and in politics. And government also looked at NGO during that period with a lot of suspicion, because you see the NGOs usually receive funds from even foreign countries, and government looked at NGO with doubt and suspicion that it might also lead to subversive activities if they own control. And accordingly, we also see that government brought in the Kudal Commission to investigate the activities of 950 NGOs working under an umbrella of Gandhian peace foundations. And after investigation, it didn't found 5 years of investigation. It didn't found any kind of uh, charges against those organizations, but that is actually demoralized the NGOs, disheartened the NGOs, and their relationship with the government. Then we see that from mid 1980s till present, and there is a relatively stronger state control over NGOs, and during this period of time, government has also brought in Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, through which government pressurized NGO to register through the legislations to bring in funds from foreign accounts and foreign donors, so that government could also have a look about their the financial details. Okay, this is more about NGO government relationship from independence until 1950s, Khadi and Village Industries Commission, KVIC, and Central Social Welfare Board, which I have already discussed about in the previous slide. Now, quickly, I will deal into the role of NGOs in advocacy. We also have another lecture on media advocacy will be taken by Madam Hanane. So here, if we look into the NGO's role of advocacy, we see that it is important to understand what is advocacy first. When we talk about role of NGOs in advocacy, NGO has been involving in advocacy. So what is advocacy? Advocacy is basically a systematic, organized, and deliberate method of bringing change in the society and persuading uh, decision makers towards desired change. So that's how we understand advocacy. And in advocacy, the what is important is identifying the problem, and the cause is very important. So here I'm not talking about media advocacy. I'm focusing on NGOs' role in advocacy. So NGOs basically try to identify the problem when they enter into area of actions. They try to identify the problem, and problem is different from the issues. So if issue is you see that lack of literacy is the issue or illiteracy is the issue, then we need to identify the problem. Maybe low retention, more dropout, and low enrollment. That lack of quality of education are some of the problems over which we can work on. So it is important to identifying the problem and identifying the cause of the problem, why that problem has occurred. If we want to study the role of NGOs in advocacy and also try to understand the advocacy, carry out the advocacy, and being an NGO representative or support NGO in advocacy. So it is important to identifying the problem. When you actually involve in a society also and try to bring in change, it is important to understand the problem and understand the cause. Even for a cause, you can be say that it may be a helping cause or helping cause to help a victim. And also bring in some change in the institution to help the victim. So that's what is very important to understand. And then we say that leadership development and change agency is very important. Leadership development, once you identify the problem, next is to develop leadership is important. And there might be two, three leadership after you identify the problem to even take up that organized course of action. But what is important here is that at times when there are multiple leadership or no leadership emerges, then you focus on the task which are to be taken to meet the problem, and automatically that leadership will emerge. Then we focus on the change agency. Change agency is basically the NGO itself is a change agency, or that leader, or those people who are in working in alliance or working in that collective will be the change agent. And information is very important. Information regarding who will be the decision maker, who are the decision maker, who has the power and authority to make change, and with whose effort you can bring in change is very important. Those information need to collect. Then you are to frame an issue with objective, which is very very important. Framing that issue, because we have already identified the issue and identified the problem. You breaking the issue into various problem and then frame the issue with the objective. And when you frame the issue with objective, so you need to involve a strategy, and that is called smart strategy. Smart is, you see, small, measurable, achievable, um, and this is also time bound. So smart strategy is very very reliable and time bound. This strategy is very very important. So here when we actually frame the issue with that objective has to be a small objective, it has to be measurable objective and short objective. Measurable objective, we also focus on the achievable objective, and objective has to be reliable and time bound. We need to meet, that on time. So suppose we talk about the environmental campaign, environmental degradations. So we might also have short-term objective, medium-term objective, and long-term objective. So you see that in terms of short-term objective, we do have um, objective related to writing a blog, and also develop a campaign about understand making an understanding and comprehension of the importance of you see the environmental conservation. Or you can also write a blog on climate change to aware people about the climate change. So that might be a very short term objective. When you talk about the medium term objective, you might also think about a workshop, conference, or seminar to mobilize people, to make people aware about the issue, and also commit people towards the issue. And then long term objective, maybe you achieve a collaboration with the schools, with different sectors of the organization, or you see, you actually achieve in creating a kind of green sphere, so where people are very consciously investing upon the natural resources and waste management and buying the green technologies, so that green sphere is possible, and that is a long term objective. So in that way we can have some you say short term objective, medium term objective, long term objective. Or you might also take another example, police brutality in one region. So, and how gender of that region is being affected. Then you might also have some short term objective of making some of the police arrested who are into that brutality, and also some legal action against those police, ensured to take some legal actions against those officers. And then we also see that medium term objective. When you talk about the medium term objective, there might be gender sensitization program through which you can sensitize community of police about the gender. And then we have long term objective like 50% mm, a decrease of police brutality on gender. So like that way you can have some objective, and which will be smart objective, and that too entangled with the issue that is related to the issue. Then we have target, that is the change target, which is very important. Change target may be primary or secondary target. So we see the primary target will be the government basically, who can bring change, and secondary target will be the editor and newspapers. Those editorials will always make a change, and they will support towards the change. So you also need to have primary and secondary target. Strength of the NGO is very, very important. When we talk about the strength, you need to understand what makes you to bring in change, and what is your strength. If mass base is a strength, and if your organization is expanded and span across the region, span across the geography, so mass base is the strength. And if the skill personnel are there in this NGO, that becomes a strength. And your experience, for year long experience you have been working in locality development, that might be the strength. So strength of the NGO is very important, and that could be comprehended through SWOT analysis. That strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat analysis, which is usually carried out in an NGO to understand uh, the role of NGO in advocacy. Then we have media advocacy. Media advocacy will be discussed in detail by Lam, but here when you talk about the advocacy, we usually see how media is trying to uh, disseminate a cause. That is very, very important, how media is trying to disseminate a cause, the role of editorial in the newspaper, uh, about making awareness about any cause, helping cause, conscientious cause, and making awareness about any issues. That is media advocacy. And we are also trying to even write an editorial about any issues, about police brutality, for example, about environmental campaign. So that will be a media advocacy. Or even through, you see, a drama, and we see a theater, a performance of a theater, performance of a drama, you can also conduct media advocacy. So how to influence the policy is very important. So influencing the decision makers are very important, and political route is important. The first route is you try to influence the decision maker, and that too through report, through analyzing various secondary report, through researching various secondary report, to even documentations. You can try to influence the decision maker through various documentation, through preparing various report, through analyzing various causes of the problem and the issues, and through research you try to influence the decision maker through preparing report of the research. And political route is basically try to influence the political party, and who usually have a direct stake in this decision making process. Uh, and also MLA, MP, etc. So that is also equivalent to, you see, this legislative advocacy. We talk about legislative advocacy. So here we also talk about interest group advocacy. So in interest group advocacy, we actually create a network among the interest group. Will work in favor of a cause. And when we talk about legislative advocacy, and in terms of how to influence the policy, we usually talk about the role of legislature in devising change in the policy and taking up the issue and bringing change. And then we talk about the recognition of self-help group. That is also one organization through which you can also conduct advocacy. You recognize that local level, you capacitated one organizations, you mobilize people of the villages, and through which you can create awareness, you can train them, you can build their capacity, and you can also take them to you can make them take part in development. That's how you can also uh, uh, take in advocacy. Then you see public interest litigation, which is very important, and that is one very instrument of legal action which is actually initiated by court of law for the enforcement of public interest. And you see the general interest, in which public or the class of community has pecuniary interest and some interest by which their legal rights and liabilities are affected. And this definition is given by Black Law Dictionary, that has given an explanation of PIL. So when you talk about the public interest litigation, it has a role in NGO advocacy because it is by which we can bring the court nearer to the community. So there are different aspects of public interest litigation. Public interest litigation is basically uh, remedial in nature. Remedial in nature, in the sense that it will depart from the traditional locus standi. Those who can file a lawsuit where not only the you see. Not only the organization or some government, but you see the NGOs and general people, common people can also file a lawsuit against any kind of human rights violation and can advocate for a cause. So, PIL is important from understanding the advocacy for human rights violation, and it is remedial in nature, that it try to create a regime of human rights, right to life, right to liberty, right to equality, right to free trial, right to free from even torture and inhuman and degrading treatment. So it has focused up right to job, right to have a healthy working condition, right to have social security measure, right to avail social security measures. Like that way, it has created a gamut of regime of human rights, and hence it is remedial in nature and try to provide a remedy to human rights violation. Hence, it is important, and then it is representative also in the sense that not necessarily the victim whose human rights are being violated. Suppose a victim of even poverty, any victim who hasn't got due benefit, uh, and also a victim who suffer from the consequence of some of the government action or even private bodies action. Okay, so anybody can be victim, a group can be victim, individual can be victim, not necessarily that they can file the suit, legal suit, but you see, any third party, any registered NGO can file the suit against, petition against the victim, and hence it is representative. NGO can work as a representative of the victim. And then it is non-adversarial litigation. As we see in public interest litigation, we see it is of collaborative nature. As it actually brings in the government, it brings in the private sectors, it brings in even NGO sectors, civil society organization, media, citizens together to file that litigation, and it is also investigative order. And most of the time, you see, government also take help of Human Rights Commission. They take help of CBI to understand and investigate the situation, and review the situation of human rights violation, and try to provide a verdict to establish that human rights. Public interest litigation, there are some features. So it basically it will create a new regime of human rights, as I have told you, and it will also democratize the access to justice in India. Justice V.N. Krishna Iyer and P.N. Bhagavati has a role to bring in public interest litigation and bringing court nearer to the community, to the victim, and also it will fashion a new kind of relief at the same time, and also provide judicial monitoring to the state-based institutions, as well as devising new technique of fact finding. As I have already told you, that the government usually take a help of different existing institutions like Human Rights Commission, National Human Rights Commission, and CBI to fact find. To find the fact of any human rights violations, and devising new technique of fact finding, and then judicial monitoring of the state institution. And many a time government and the court court also come up with order to even see this improvement of the condition of juvenile homes, improvement of the condition of asylum, improvement of the condition of the shelter home. So that's how they monitor the state institutions. So, and that is possible even through PIL. And when and how to file PIL is also important, you understand, because at times while filing PIL, you have to be very cautious that it should not take the decision making power of the victim and who has filed uh, the PIL. So because it might also alter the decision making power. So when you actually file an PIL, so you actually need to know the consequence of filing the PIL. Definitely, it will bring in the regime of human rights, but you need to be very prepared, because you need to be organized. You need to be prepared to bring in lot of documents and photographs with you, and research on that topic, and you need to take help of the lawyer. And for an NGO, it is important to become a registered NGO, to file an PIL in favor of a victim or anyone whose case is being taken by NGO. And at times, it is also true that filing of PIL can lead to an alternative decision making, can take away the decision making power of the NGOs. Okay. And also the one against whom PIL is filed. So you have to be a bit cautious. Um, okay, I quickly ponder on those do's and don'ts of advocacy for NGOs. So here we actually choose advocacy as your strategy. So there are some specific objective, as I have told you. When you go for NGO advocacy, we have actually discussed about role of NGO in advocacy. So this is important. Uh, First, that you actually choose advocacy as your strategy. So you have to be very specific. You have to have a message, specific message, and specific target, and skills that NGOs need for effective advocacy work. It's very, very important, and an organization need to have that organizational ability, analytical skills, to research the situation, communication skills, to even communicate about what is happening is very, very important, and analytical skill to understand the situation, communication skill to package the different documents, and also to influence the media is very, very important, and to organize the effort of you see, different organizations. When we talk about this advocacy, we also take in the effort of different interest group who articulate grievances, who articulate their problems So taking their effort together and also put in front of media involves lot of organizational ability, and analytical skill is basically to research upon the situation, which is important. Why you see why that the problem prevails. You need to identify the problem, then you identify the cause and why that problem prevails, why there is that victim needs help is very important, and hence analytical skill is important. Communication skill, as I have already told you, to communicate your line of action to the government, your line of action to the legislative body, communicate your line of action to the people, to the citizens, and to the media is very, very important. Then readiness and ability to make contacts is very, very important for NGO advocacy, and think long term. So as I have already told you that you can have some long term goal, medium term goal, and short term goal. Then you can also think wider, that you can bring in the cause of other people also, not in fact the cause of one targeted community. Then you can find new allies at the same times who can also support your cause. So it is important to also to strengthen your pursuit. It is important at times to get the visibility, to bring in new allies who will support your cause, and also to make yourself free or protect from different kind of threats and exploitation. It's very important on NGO's part to even find the new allies, and consider a variety of tactics for advocacy. So variety of tactics, as we have already discussed in the very first slide, it is about you see the interest uh, advocacy, you talk about media advocacy, you talk about mass advocacy through demonstration, through rallies. uh, that coverage of that demonstration, coverage of that rallies is very, very important. That is also one tactics. And also some of the direct actions which always are not advisable, but at times as a media you can you say cover those actions, and as an NGO you can undertake those actions and to bring in change. Even direct actions are at times important from NGO's point of view, and that is another social action strategy to bring in change. Through confrontation they try to bring in change in the society. So their approach to change, transformation, and also you see empowerment is completely changed. Now they believe in confrontation, come in confrontation with this government and bring in change. So that is also that reflect another aspect of you see NGO and government relationship, and also see that considering that technique is also very important. So that update your organization to be able to take on advocacy work. So it is important also for an NGO to upgrade itself, to update itself to take on the advocacy work. So it is very, very important. It is also important, which actually see this classification of NGO, which I have actually discussed, and I have missed some point there. Is that when you talk about the classification of NGO, and there are certain NGO which are always conformist variety. They will conform to the government line of funds, and there are also some NGOs which will try to innovate and experiment, and they will not follow the government line of action. So in terms of government and NGO relationship, it is also important what line of actions you have taken, and also your orientation. Whether your orientation is revolutionary, your orientation is uh, you see nationalist, your orientation is reformist. So it's important to understand the orientation, and from the very orientation of NGOs, from the goal and mission of the NGOs, we can also understand its commitment and relatability to government goals. I'm ending my presentation here. So if you have any questions, you can come across.